Okay. So first of all, what is the program? What is the program all about? Whenever you say I am programming, what is that person is trying to do? Can you tell me any program which you know? Java is not a program; it is a language, right? What is a program basically? But I'm interested in the programs not written by someone else. I'm interested in something which you can do. Yeah, Apache is definitely a program, but I would refer to it as an application basically. Yeah. What is the most simplest program which you can think of? Where did you start your C in your engineering? What was your first program? Printf. My name is, right? Yeah. So what is that you were trying to do there? So you wanted to see your name. For that you could have used Word or Notepad. You have written it yourself. Then why did you wanted a C program to do it for you? What is the difference between you writing something and your C program or whatever you have written in your graduation days to do something for you? What is the actual difference? No difference? Same? అర్థమైందా? మీరు మీ పేరు రాసుకుంటున్నారండి. సి ప్రోగ్రామ్ తో కూడా మీ పేరు రాశారు. రెండిటికి డిఫరెన్స్ ఏంటి? What is the difference? If you have to write your name again, what will you do if you are writing? You have to rewrite it. But if it is a C program, I can re-execute. Yes, certain tasks which are done again and again, right? We would want that to be done by someone else rather than us. That's the whole point why programming started, right? Why do you think banks are using software? Because they don't want their accountants to fill their books and don't want to have all of that stuff. They want that stuff to be very much simple, right? Because they are doing, what is it you are doing when you are transferring amounts? You are doing a transaction. What does it do? It does the same thing again and again, whether it is 1 rupee transaction or a 1 lakh transaction. Yes or no? Yes. For that, earlier what used to happen? Accountant writes in the bank, in a book, or some record of his own, right? And then it has to be, if you have to pick up the amount, you have to go to the same bank, because that is the only bank which is aware of your balances. Now, is that the same thing that is happening in banks? Right? So basically, the whole reason of writing any program is, okay, you can do something, right? And you can write something which you do often. It could be anything. You can take anything for that exam. You can take your exam, online exam. Why do I need to have someone prepared an MSET exam every year for me? Right? Why don't I let someone evaluate? Right? I don't need a squad. I take an online test. I don't need too much of people doing the manual efforts. I will get results popped up immediately. And I get the immediate results. Yes or no? Yes. So you can apply it to any industry. So the whole reason for us for writing a program or any kind of an application is to achieve something which is of business importance. But in DevOps, we don't do that. Right? But let us forget or push aside DevOps for something else. Because in DevOps, my aim is I want to automate the pipeline. So that is what I am restricted to. Your developers might be restricted to some of your businesses or customers' interests. So your customer want to do stock market trading. So you might build some applications around it. Right? Your customer is some Casinani Travels or whatever it is. You would be interested in building an application which can help him to do whatever his business is all about. So our business in DevOps is only one thing: automating the pipeline. So whenever we are writing script, we write for that. Okay, that put aside. Whenever we are writing programs, right, we what is the most important component that executes our programs? I'm speaking about hardware. In your laptop, what is the component that executes your programs? Processor. Wonderful. And what part of your system basically remembers or stores some activity or does allocations? RAM, right? And then what part of your system will basically preserve whatever you have done? So we have three things to play on. One is we need processors which execute our programs. We need RAM because they act as a mechanism for storing certain data, right? And we need hard disk so that we can retain what we have done. Let us assume that we have drawn some MS Paint image, right? Until unless you save it, nothing remains, right? Yes or no? The whole reason is then you are trying to do something on your hard disk where a file gets created. So there we might use a file, we might use a database, or you might use whatever it is on whatever possibilities which you have. So, but whenever you are writing your programs, you get to deal with two important parts of your system, which is CPU and RAM. Right? Hard disk is an explicit choice, but without CPU and RAM, you cannot write or try to execute any program. Right? Yes. Okay. Now we get to play on CPU and RAM. Who allocates CPU to us? Who does that? You want to run an application, right? But who will give you your CPU and RAM to you? That's your OS. That's your operating system. The whole reason for having an operating system is your applications speak with operating system to get the things done. Right? Yes. So whenever you say printf, C doesn't have power to directly speak with your IO. It sends the instruction to your operating system saying that this application wants to print something to the terminal, please do it. Right? Am I clear on this? So our programs speak with operating systems to do the low level actions. All right? That's the reality. Fine. Now you want to basically come back to the basic stuff over here. So whenever you're writing your programs, okay, you need to know or remember certain values. Yes or no? Okay, I'm not trying to tell about your brain, but let us assume that I want to add these two numbers, 3 and 5. Right? So I need some storage space to remember those values. Yes or no? So whenever I need something to remember, it is always RAM. It is always RAM. Okay. So RAM is all about remembering, right? But the whole problem with RAM is, what is the problem with RAM? You restart your machine or you stop voltage supply to it, all of your memory is lost. Right? It is much like Gajni, where Surya tries to chase who was he? Nayantara, right? As long as he sees Nayantara, he remembers it. For the people who have watched the Hindi version of it, I think their Amir Khan chases. I don't remember the heroine. Yeah, whoever it is, right? So that's the whole point. So basically, you can think of it in the same way, right? So whenever you're working on, you need to have some storage spaces, but because you want to do some computations. CPU is not about remembering anything. CPU is all about executing certain stuff, right? So CPU is all about computations, right? Fine. Now let me tell you this. I want to write a program which adds 3 or 5 or 3 plus 5, whatever you call it. So what is that I need to know? Don't tell me C equal to A plus B. I'm not interested in your programming. So just tell me in the terminology which I have spoken right now. You need a storage space for storing 3 and 5 in your RAM. And then you give an instruction to your CPU saying that please add them. Right? And the result, you need one more storage space. Yes. This is what you do, right? And whatever I have spoken right now, is it rocket science by any chance? No? Wonderful. Now, You said that I want to have a storage space for 3, but how much storage? Whether you want 4 GB for that, 1 GB for that, how will you tell to your operating system how much space do you want? How will you tell to that? There should be somewhere, right? Right? That's the whole point why you have something called as data type. Whenever you are saying int a, right, you are trying to tell that give me a 16 bit or a 32 bit or a 64 bit of storage so that I want to store something. So data type is all about your memory allocations, right? But in data types there are two kinds of data types. One which are simple, the other one are which are not so simple, which I would call it as complex. So what do I mean by simple? Simple will have, you can predict the size, and when I'm speaking about complex, you cannot predict the size. So for predicting the size, okay, okay, what do I refer to it as is an integer. Integer will be a 32 bit or a 64 bit or whatever it is a fixed size. Boolean, right? So you want to store true or false, fixed size. So there are certain things which are fixed and certain things which are not fixed. So let me try to basically give an example saying that, okay, you have a data type in almost every language which is called as character, right? And character, you would basically tell that in character I will be storing something like A, B, or whatever it is, but individual character. This is a fixed size. But the problem is we don't deal with characters, we deal with something which is set of characters, right? So for example, I want to deal with not A, but I want to deal with high, something like this. Now high is how many characters? So size of this is measured in characters, and characters have a fixed size. Now suddenly I change my high to hello. What happens? Is the size increasing? So there are certain data types, when you change the value of it, it might lead to the increase or decrease of the space. So how do I handle this situation? If they are fixed, I don't have any issue, because let me open an Excel sheet. Think that it is all of your RAM locations. Each position over there which you are looking at is, let us assume that it is a byte, which is 8 bits, right? Let us assume that I have allocated an integer. So let me take hello for an integer, all right? And then I have float. Let us assume float has 4 bytes. So I'll take some blue color. Now I change any values as ever I want. These sizes are fixed. Nothing happens to here, right? Now if I try to take a character is generally 1 or 2 bytes, right? So let me take it as 1, and let me use the color of red. So boolean, right? It is a very simple data byte which takes a bit of space, 0 or 1. That's it. It will try to tell you. But every data type or every memory which you ask for is not this. So for example, you want to take a name of a person as an input because you want to store it somewhere, right? Is your name and my name of same size? That's a problem, right? So let us assume that I want to store a name over here, and I've used a name with 3 letters. Okay, so I'll use some other color which is gray. Fine. And then after that, I have basically allocated one more integer. I've allocated one more integer. Simple. Now I have realized that I have typed his name wrongly. His name is not 3 characters, but it is 4. Now, how am I going to fix this? The thing what I have to do is, okay, let us assume that after this you have too many different memories which are already in use. Okay, So now this position, which is these things, you want to increase by one more space. What do you think is an option? Push everything aside by one side, one thing. అవునా 3 ఉన్న చోట ఎన్ని కావాలి నాకు, right? So what is the solution for that now? You try to tell me. You just give me your common sense. I'm not interested in any pro. I'm not asking you, do you know Java? Do you know C? Nothing, right? Many of the people who work on Java don't know this. So don't think that who is working on Java is intelligent. No, it doesn't work that way. Now what is the solution? I want to have basically Hij, which has 3 spaces. I want 4 spaces now. What are the options? What is that? I don't want to speak about address also. Don't worry about it. I'm speaking about very అంటే రైతులకి నేను ప్రోగ్రామింగ్ గురించి చెప్తున్నాను అనుకోండి. Don't try to bring in whatever you have learnt about programming already. So I have H and Hij, but actually the size has to be Hij or 4 blocks. But actually I have 3 blocks. But the problem is after 3 blocks there are many allocations which are happened by other programs. Right? So in the RAM, because your RAM is not used only by your application, many other applications are also using it. So what can I do? Push everything aside by one byte. Yes, but the problem is it takes too much of time because you don't know how much size it will be, right? Let us assume that you have 256 GB of RAM and you want to push something on your first position of your RAM. Remember how much effort does it take for everything? And while you are pushing other programs, can they use that memory? మీరు push చేస్తున్నారు, right? Well, while other programs can use that memory, no. So pushing is not an option. Can you tell me what is that you can do? Pardon me? Wonderful. So basically what we do is we take this, we would give it a new memory location, right? And we'll make it 4. And this stuff which we have, we'll make it back to, remember, this is what happens in every programming language. Whenever you are working on something called as strings, whenever you change a string value, you do it very often, but your compiler does this. So for example, if you have assigned a string a value of high and then you change a hello, right? You are not operating on same memory, you are operating on a different memory. Any data type which does this, whenever you change a value, it is reallocating a new address. It is called as immutable data type because you cannot change it, right? You can recreate it, but you cannot change what is in there, right? So am I clear on this? So strings, we use it a lot, but they are not really simple. Okay. So and every allocation which you are trying to do in the Excel sheet, you are seeing something like A1, B1 and C1 and like that, right? But on a RAM, what you have is you have hexadecimal numbers. On a RAM, what you have is a hexadecimal number, 0xFF or something like that, right? I'm not sure how many of you have done microprocessors during your graduation, but I'm quite sure that everyone who is a graduate in engineering might have done something about 8086 processor or 8085, right? There you work on memory locations. Now in the programming languages also, if I say that you have to work on memory locations, it will be very difficult because there are 2 problems. When I directly work on memory locations, if I take that program to the other application, that memory locations might not be free. Avuna? Na system lo, let us assume that in my system 10,000 to 20,000 is free. But if you take it on your friend's laptop, you cannot assure that 10,000 to 20,000 locations are free for you. So that's why what they do is, whenever you create, basically you know that it is a data type and you want to allocate some memory into it, you need an address space. Since it is difficult for us to work with address spaces, what these guys do is they try to tell that there are 2 ways of dealing it. One is try to use something called as a variable, okay, or constant, whatever you call it. So these are the 2 ways, and whether you take it as a constant or a variable, the thing which it is nothing but an alias to your memory address, right? So when I'm writing something like constant int I equal to 0, something like that, right? What I mean is, I want you to allocate a memory for my integer. Since I am not going to change that value, my address space is always going to be the same, and no one should be able to change anything in that, right? Or the other thing which you can write is int j equals to 1. So what you are trying to tell us, allocate a memory which is for an integer in this program, and whatever the address space which you have, whenever I want to access that address space, I will be referring it to as j in my program. For the constant, I will be referring it to as I in my program. Am I clear on that? So variables or constants are nothing but aliases to your addresses, because we can't work hexadecimal, right? And in this case, what happens is your operating systems can allocate memory anywhere in your RAM, because you are not hard coding the address. You are saying any address is okay for me as long as you have allocated it. That's the whole point. That's the whole concept of variable and constant. Simple? Yes? Okay. Now, we know how to allocate memory now. To allocate the memory, you need a data type. And to access that memory, we need some alias. And that we refer it to as variable and constant generally. Right? So, now, what is the other thing? What is the whole purpose which we do applications on? We do some computations. We do some computations. And basically, computations are achieved by something called as operators. Right? Depending on what you are computing, you have different kinds of operators. I don't want to get into here or saying that you have plus, you have minus. No, I don't deal in that way. Right? So you have some operators to work on. So for example, if you are working on, you will have different expressions over there. For example, if you are looking out for some Boolean based decisions. So I want to look out on something which is basically Boolean in nature. Then I might have Boolean operators. I might have numeric operators. I might have string operators. So these operators are nothing but something which do computation. CPU nu vadukovali kada. CPU nu vaadataniki vaadedi operators. To use your CPU, what you actually do is you use operators. That's the whole point which you, right? Okay. So now every language or every stuff basically starts with basic operators for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? And apart from that, they also have string operators, something like you can find index, you can find count, something like that. These are all something which your CPU does. So for all of this, we have operators. And then you have Boolean operators, something like and, or, XOR, whatever you have learned in your mathematics with respect to exclusive ORs and all that. Because at the end of the day, every computation happens like this, right? CPU does these kind of basic set of operations for you. Now, I know how to go with variables. What are variables now? I know what are data types, and I know there are some operators, right? Now, basically, and I'm not speaking Ruby by any chance, right? Whatever I've spoken for till now, it is not, has nothing to do with Ruby. Okay. Audio lost. So then I'm speaking something which is of really of importance. Am I audible now? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we have this as a basics of for any stuff. Even if you want to write a shell script, this is what you do. Even if you want to write a PowerShell script, this is what you want to do. And even if you write Java, this is what you do at the end of the day. But yeah, those might have something called as object-oriented programming, which we might not be interested at this moment, right? But the whole side of the story is these are the basic stuff. Now, let us assume that I want to write something in any language. So what is the first thing which you will search for? You will search for what are data types, right? And what are, how do you basically define variables, and what are the operators that are available? Is that a very difficult job to do? No. Right? And every language, like generally the languages which we speak also do have some sort of grammar. And whenever you are writing in your applications, you would have some sort of syntaxes, right? You have to tell the language in the same way, right? Yeah? Yes or no? Yeah, you cannot make assumptions over here. You have to basically follow the syntax over here. Let us assume that you are speaking German. Yeah, German లో కొన్ని పదాలు రావు కదా అని తెలుగు మాట్లాడితే సరిపోద్దా? Since I know half German, is it okay if I speak rest of the stuff in Hindi? Will German work that way? We do the same thing to programming, right? You have to understand that, and that grammar which I am speaking about is nothing but your syntaxes, right? And every language has its own way of telling these syntaxes, right? So now basically what I'll do is, let me try to search whatever I've discussed and see whether this is enough for you to start something in any language, right? I'll type data types in, let me not cite Java. Everyone is worried about Python these days, right? Let me start it from there. What is it you have here? You have bool, you have int 8, you have uint 8, and if you see, all of them speak about, what is that? Sizes. Yeah, okay. And what is the next thing? You take any site, I'm okay with it, because as long as you're searching any language in this way, I'm okay for it. Okay, he's trying to tell a is equal to 100. That's the way you assign a variable. Yeah, and what is the other thing? Are they very difficult to understand? Yeah, can I do the same stuff for Ruby? What is it I have to search? Variables in Ruby, right? Or constants in Ruby, whatever you call it. Data types in Ruby, operators in Ruby. Is this really a difficult job to do? No. Yes. And now next comes something which you treat as a difficult part. Yeah, which is writing some program. We know the basics now. We know how to build the basic stuff over here. Now you want to write about something. All right. Now what I want you to do is, or what I want you to look at is, let us assume that I want you to calculate simple interest. What is that you do? Can you tell me how do you calculate simple interest? Elaga? Principal into time into rate by 100. అంటే వడ్డీ లెక్కండి, ఏం లేదు. మీరు 100 రూపాయలు, ఓకే, పోనీ you have taken 1000 rupees from your friend at a rate of interest of 12%. So how do you calculate that? రూపాయి వడ్డీ అంటే ఎంత? రూపాయి వడ్డీ అంటే ఏంటి అసలు? నాకు నిజంగా తెలియక అడుగుతున్నాను. So we all know about 1 rupee interest and 1.5 rupee interest. That's what we speak in generally our terms, right? So ఆ వడ్డీ లెక్క వేయండి. పోనీ మీరు అప్పు ఇచ్చారనుకోండి, నేను తీసుకున్నాను అనుకోండి, నేను మీకు ఎంత వడ్డీ ఇవ్వాలో లెక్కేయండి. So you have given me 10,000 rupees for 2 rupees interest, and tell me what is that I have to pay for you this month, for per month. So how do we calculate that? Since you are doing this calculation throughout the day for 10,000 people, I have asked you to write some program around it. Right? For the people వడ్డీ గురించి బాగా తెలియని వాళ్ళు ఎవరైనా ఉంటే, go with simple interest. Otherwise I want you to basically calculate this. So your input is, okay, you would tell how many rupees of interest that you have taken. Okay, so one is rate of interest. You can take it in percentages or you can take it in 1 rupee or 2 rupee, whatever you understand. All right, and then what is the principal amount, and tell me how much you have to pay monthly. Okay, so this is something which you have to write an application on. Okay, and I just open these things for you. Okay, and really you don't need to worry about the data type now if you are writing Python and Ruby, because you are not telling int a equal to something, you are just directly assigning the values. Right, now I would ask you to write a program for it, but I am not asking you to write a Python program for it. I am asking you to write your plan around it. Right, so you want to build a program, and for that program I've asked you to calculate the rate of interest. And can you just tell me what is your input is going to be, what are the memory allocations which you do, and what are the operations which you are going to do? Shall we start that? Did we understood the problem? Yes. Okay, so start that, and we'll be looking into how do you solve the program. And once you tell me the steps, let us try to solve that program in Python and Ruby both, because all of you are very much interested in Python these days, right? So let me try to tell how to crack Python. Yeah, for the people on the web, is the problem statement clear? Andarki em cheyalo telusa? Yeah, so these are the operators which I am trying to show you. Okay, I am not expecting any program to be written. Don't send me if a equal to something, all of that. The question which I have asked is, you want to solve this program, how many computer memory allocations do you want? Right, right, and what are the operators which you would like to use for doing that calculation? My problem will be something like that. I will be giving you inputs as, I have taken 1 lakh at a 2 rupees rate of interest or 2.5 rupees rate of interest from someone. Can you tell me how much I have to pay monthly? It is 7:10 right now. 7:15. We will try to solve this program in Python or Ruby, and then we'll go out for a break. Start that activity immediately. I am not asking you to write the program anyway. Don't share programs. I am asking you, what is your memory going to be? What are your operators which you are going to be? So you are trying to design a plan for CPU and memory. Yeah. Then we'll try to discuss about something called as, how many of your computer graduates over here? Some graduation in computers. Yeah. Okay. So I have something to speak after you write this. Okay. Fine then. Get started. Yes. So what are your memory locations? How many memory locations do you want? Yeah, I don't want program. I am not interested in program. First, let us build our basics right, because this is where we have messed up in our graduations. Right? So what are the things which you need to consider whenever you want to do interest calculations? What are the inputs? Rate of interest. Right? Rate of interest, what is it going to be? It is going to be a number which can have decimal positions. Right? And then principal amount also can have decimal positions. So you will try to find 2 memory locations fit for storing decimal numbers. Right? Right. And you want to give the result to the user. So for the result, you would like to basically, your result also will be a decimal number. Yes or no? Right. So I am operating on 3 stuffs. And what is your calculation like? So I have 10,000 rupees or whatever it is. Yeah. 1 rupee and 2 rupee. Yeah. 10,000 rupees. And I have given you for 2 rupees rate of interest. So how do you do your math? What is your logic around it? That is what is my rate of interest now? So let me do here 10,000 into time. Time is in years if I am not wrong in principal time rate. Yes. So time is 1 by 12 and into what is your rate of interest? 2. But 2 is not rupees. 2 is percentage. So how do you do that? Yes. So yes or no? 1 rupee interest is equal to 12% per year. Avuna kada? Yeah. So whenever I'm saying 2 rupees interest, I'm saying 2 into 12% because 1 rupee per month into 12 months in a year. So I'm saying 2 rupees interest, which is 2 into 12. Now you do your math. It will come to what? It is percentage. So you will have by 100. Yeah. So this 12 and this 12 is gone. And then you get 20,000 divided by 100 because you are speaking about percentages. And then you will get, this is what it is, right? So what is the most important thing over here? Your calculation logic or rest of the stuff? You need to know your calculation logic, you need to know about your memory locations, and you need to know about your operators. Yes. So now let me go back to Python. So in Python, I want a float number or I would go for a double, right? And now how do I define a variable in Python? We have looked into it. So let me quickly write a Python code for that. Okay. So notepad plus plus, I'll take a new file, language, take P and Python so that it can help me in Python. And my variable name, first variable is principal amount. Principal amount is 10,000. Good. And then what is the other thing? Rate. Rate is 2. And whenever I am saying 2, I will multiply it by 12. Okay. And then what is time? Yeah. So it is 1 month. So I am not defining a variable for it. So result is interest. Interest is equal to principal, because whenever I am saying principal, I am referring to that memory location which has a value of 10,000 into time. Time is 1 into rate, and all of this by 100. I can use a division, right? By divided by 100, or if you don't like this way of putting it, you can just say 100 into, this is all your math, right? Yeah. And now if you want to display this value, you need to know what is the stuff which can display some value, right? So for that we need to look into something called as functions, but for now I am not going to functions, but there is a function called as print in Python which will display. So save this file with something called as interest.py, save your variable values, and it will do the calculation for you. Yes. So shall we try to do the same thing in Ruby now? Yeah. So what is it I need to search for? Data types in Ruby. Okay. Ruby has very much simplified for us. It has no nonsense of float and stuff. It has just something called as numbers. Good. Okay. And then what is the other thing which I need to look at? Variables in Ruby. I am okay with any Google page. If you know what you are searching for, I am really not looking out for a specific page. Right. So in Ruby, if I want to go with variables, I'll use something called as dollar symbol over here, right? Okay, good. And what are the other things which you need to know? Ruby operators. Operators will not be much different from language to language. Since we are doing addition and multiplication, they will sound the same. Yes. So shall we try to do the same thing in Ruby now? Okay. So dollar principal is equal to 10,000, right? Dollar rate of interest is equal to 2 into 12, and then dollar result is equal to dollar principal into dollar rate into time. Let me put 1 over here, and then I'll do the same stuff whatever I've done in Ruby. Okay. Division, which is 12 star. So how drastically have your program changed from Python to Ruby? Can we write it in Java now? Yes. If I have to write it in Java, what is it I need to search for now? Data types in Java, operators in Java. How do I define a variable in Java? So is this really a rocket science? You can do the same thing in shell script and PowerShell also. Same thing. Shell script variables, shell script data types, and shell script operators. So have you agreed now that if I know what I am doing, if I know my basics right, I can try this stuff in multiple programming languages at one shot? Yes? Yeah? So for the people who are admins, try this in shell scripting also, and you can use the same logic whatever I have applied over here to get the result. In shell scripting, you might use echo, right? So for example, if you want to do printing, right, you can just say echo in Ruby or printf in Ruby, whatever you know. So in Ruby says what? You can use print, or you can use something called as puts. Use whatever you want to display your variables. You just say puts, and you tell what is your variable value, which is dollar result or dollar interest. Are you getting to the whole point now? Yeah. And generally, whenever you are writing any sort of this, the first thing here, your program, if you know this part, can only go wrong whenever you don't know how to do this. If you have understood about basically the operators, the variables, right? The only thing, and syntax is obviously, right? So your program can go wrong only in your logic. So what is the most important thing which you think is required for programming? A logic, because the rest of the things don't change. If you want, you can try it on a new language which has popped up from Google, which is called as Go. Right? In Jenkins, we will be using Groovy language. So what will you do if you have to do the same thing in Groovy now? Data types in Groovy, variables in Groovy, operators in Groovy. So language is not a language, is just a barrier. It is a means of basically writing the stuff. Is this interesting? Yes. Okay. Now our program was quite straightforward. Now what we'll do is we'll try to add some logic to it, right? Where we'll get into the scenarios where we might need to do one, we might need to get into one level more of basically getting into this stuff. So we'll be looking into how to do that stuff in the second half, right? We'll be basically taking a break for 10 minutes. We'll come back and we'll try to address these problems on how do I basically do something which is more complicated than this, because we all have understood that it is simple, but we all also know that this is not the scale of problems which we look at in real time. So we might have something more than this, obviously, right? So in that cases, what is that we do, right? So fine then. So please put across this way of programming, because this is what I do and this is what I want you guys to be done, and this is the right way of dealing with programming, not really by hearting the stuff, saying that in C I have the following data types: int, char, what are the rest, byte. Okay, don't do all of that nonsense. No, it doesn't work that way. If you want to be really be something meaningful in the current age, always do whatever I've done in Google. The only way you can get up to the mark is if you try to write many programs in Ruby. There is no need for you to go to that Google pages. You can write it directly. Okay, but first thing is your calculation logic has to be right. I have taken the principal and rate of interest as a calculation logic over here. But in DevOps, when we write Chef, my calculation logic will not be that. It might be something to do with some installations. It might be something to do with some configuration files. It might be something to deal with that. But at any case, we'll be using operators, we'll be using variables, we'll be using basically data types. That's the whole stuff. And we need to add some more things to this, which will basically effectively help us in doing some other aspects of it. Fine? Okay then. So we'll go out for a break. We'll be back in 10 minutes and we'll discuss about the other aspect of Ruby, which is necessarily required for us to clear up the mess which we have done in the last class with respect to writing a decent chef program or decent chef recipe or a cookbook. Right? Okay, fine then. We'll go out for a break for 10 minutes. Okay. Now we have done this calculation, right? Now basically what you have to do is you don't have take it one by one, but you take multiple things at one shot. Right? User might give you rate of interest is same, right? But the problem is user is not interested in giving one value after one value and re-executing your program again and again, but he wants to give you 10 or 20 principal amounts at one shot, and then he wants you to calculate all of them and display the results for him. Did we got the essence of it? He is not interested in passing one rate of interest or one principal amount. Okay, so మీరు వడ్డీ వ్యాపారం చేస్తున్నారు, 300 మందికి వడ్డీకి ఇచ్చారు, and you want to get every value of it. How do you do that? And you want to take an input of multiple values at same time. The number today is 300, tomorrow it could be 200 members, day after tomorrow it could be 1000 members. The number is not fixed. So how many principal amounts do you enter? So one way is, what is that you can do? What is that you can do now? You have to do this calculation again and again with different values. So how do you do that? Copy this value how many times as you want and pass a different principal variable. So for example, now I want to do for 1 lakh. All right, I want to do for 10 lakhs. Do you think it is a good idea of copying this code again and again and changing the values? No. So what is the other thing? This definitely is not a good idea. In which I want to re-execute that code again and again with different values. But what any programming compiler does is it executes programs line by line. So here you have 3 lines of code, it will execute 3 lines and it will come out. So how can I ensure that some lines are executed multiple times? So for this we have something called as loops. All right, and generally there are 2 kinds of loops which we can iterations, whatever we call it. Yes, 2 kinds of loops basically which we can try out. All right, one is deterministic, the other one is undeterministic. When I say deterministic, I am trying to tell that I would go 100 times. I want to repeat that line 100 times. Or second case is I would go and repeat that as many times as the user wants. Yeah. So generally this is a case. Okay, I have messed up, is it? Yeah, this looks better. Yeah. Okay. So I want to repeat this some fixed amount of times, or I want to repeat it based out of some external factors. So let us look at what they are. Okay. First thing is, what I can do is I will not take one input from the user, but I'll take multiple principal amounts. So whenever you want to give any value multiple times, that is basically called as an array or a collection or a list, whatever you call it, right? So what I'll do is I'll just say arrays in Ruby. So how does arrays look like? A square bracket with multiple values. So now I'll make it as principles of 10,000 some numbers, right? So this is what I got input. Now I might have 3, tomorrow I might have 300. The user will change that value. Now for every input over there, I need to do the calculation. All right. So how many items do I have in an array? Yes. So whenever you want to check Ruby, okay, there is one easier catch over here. If the Ruby is installed on your machine, you can try syntaxes directly. Okay. Let me see. I don't have Ruby installed on this machine. So how do I install any software? Choco. Wonderful. Or you can go with Ruby online compiler. If you don't want to install anything on your machine, you can go with this. Anything is fine, right? If you don't want to install Ruby, you can work on a web page, or else you can go with Choco Ruby. Okay, Choco install Ruby is a command. So I'll just say Choco install Ruby. If you are using Linux machine or a Mac machine, use brew or apt to find out how do you do that for Ruby, right? Rather than searching for Choco Ruby, you might search for Blue Ruby, or you might search for apt get Ruby, or you might search for Yum Ruby based out of what you are trying to do. Okay. So while it is doing its work, let me do mine. Fine. So I write something like this stuff, right? Okay. Puts did I got my first value? Yes. Good. So to access these values, I need to have something called as index, which will try to tell me, okay, what is the position. And index generally starts from 0 in any array, right? So if you want to get one level deeper into it, just say that Ruby array example. If you want to do it in Python, Python array example. Shell script array example. That's the whole stuff. All right. Okay, I got it. But the problem is, since I have 3 numbers over here, I should know that I have 3 numbers. One way is you look at the program and you change manually. If the user is giving 3, I will put something like principles of 0, principles of 1, and principles of 2. If I have given 4 values, I'll put 0, 1, 2, 3. But that is nonsense. All right. So is there any other way to find it out? Okay. So every array will have a property called as length. Okay. So array length. This is all basics. I'm not really worried about. You really need not be a programmer to know all of this. Yes. So He's trying to tell that if you just do dot length, I'll be able to give this. Then what is the size? Okay, size is just an alias for this. So whether you use size or whether you use length, you get it. So let me try to check whether my program works that way or not. I have this online editor, right? So I'll just say puts dollar principles dot size. Did I got it? Yes. And now I have to iterate the condition 3 times. If I have passed my array over here, which is something like this, I have to do it 4 times, right? And every time, what is the value that changes? Principal is the value that changes. Good. So if principal is the value that is changing, okay, and I have a calculation to be done, which is something like, let me copy that. I don't want to get into this. Okay, here principal might not work out, right? So basically rate result, and I will do something like puts, and I'll put dollar result. But the problem is this, I have to execute it, at least forget about rate, but these 2 lines I have to repeat 3 or 4 times depending on my array size. These 2 lines have to be repeated 4 times, and for that you need to write iterations or loops. So you will go with the Google again and you will ask how to write loops in Ruby. You can apply the same logic for anything which you are writing. Yeah, okay. So you go over here, it says you have something called as while. In while you can write a conditional statement, and while that condition is true, it will reiterate the code. So basically what I'll do is I'll go to my editor over here, okay, and then I would say, okay, dollar index is equal to 0. Yeah, I'll start from 0, and then I'll say while, and I have a syntax over here. What does a while say? Okay, not this. While number do, and you have end. Yeah, so that is the syntax. So what is my condition? While dollar index less than dollar principles dot size. Do this calculation for me. I would say less than. If I have started from 1, it would be less than or equals to. Yeah, fine. Now what is that I have done? Let us just do our math. First time, what will be the index value? 0. Okay. Second time, what will be the index value? 1, is it? Did I write anything for 1? So how will it become 1 automatically? This is where I try to tell, don't remember your olden days. That is not the right way of doing the coding. You have to compile this coding by passing the value, substitution, right? So principles is this. I don't require this nonsense, right? I'll come to here, index has become 0, and what is the index value? 0. Principles dot size 4. I have done my calculation, and what is the index value after this? 1 అయిపోయిందా? It is 0 again. Is 0 less than 4? Yes. This program repeats again and again, and the value is always 0 is less than 4, and it will never end. Okay, so you need to have something which takes the stuff to the next level. So that's where you will tell, I would try to put something like dollar index is equal to గుర్తెట్టేసుకోకండి ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఇదే కర్మ, right? That's the whole problem of all of this. That's why I don't prefer writing for int I equal to 0, I less than or equal to n. No, try to substitute your values and then don't go with happy paths, because in programming you have to be explicit. If you have written that program, your program would have never ended. It will go on and on. Let us see what is happening. Okay, is it so what is that it is trying to tell? Undefined method star. So where is that we have messed up? So this doesn't seems to be a right thing, because we don't have something called as principal, but we have principles of, right? This is the right syntax. It's okay. Was this really a rocket science? Can we do this in Python? Yes. So what will I do? Rather than searching iterate loops in Ruby, I would be searching for something called as. Okay. Let me see if there is something else which I can try. While statement. Good. There is something called as until. Okay. Until is exactly opposite to while. Okay. In while, what happens when the condition is true? It will get inside the loop. Until is, if the condition is false, it will be in the loop. If the condition is not equals to false, it is something like writing while not equals to condition. While not. All right. So come down. Do we have something else? For statement. So you write for I in, okay, whatever array which you have. Okay. So this looks like a better option. So the same thing, if you have to write a for loop, this program can be changed to something as, okay, rather than writing this index, incrementing this index and all of this nonsense, what I would try to write is, I will try to write for dollar principal in dollar principals do dollar result, oh sorry, dollar result is equals to, man, I will copy this. Okay. You can write puts or print, whatever it is, it's same. What's dollar? Sorry, result, it's not. So in this case, I have an advantage because I need not, basically in while I might forget incrementing the value again and again. But over here, what happens? You are trying to tell that for every value in the array, and whenever it iterates, for the first time, pass the first element into this variable called as principles. For the second time, pass the second time whatever you have in this variable. You did not do that dollar off 0, off 1 and all of that something. Let me see if it works out. Are you getting the same values? Yes. It is a different way of approaching the same thing. Not done yet. Okay. Let me go over it again. A break next. This is all fine. Redo, retry. Okay. This is something which I was looking out for. This is what we use in Chef a lot. Okay. So I'll be using something called as, now this for loop I'll write in a different way, which I will call it as each. I'll try to tell that dollar principles dot each. I want every value in this dollar principles, right? Okay, let me look at the syntax and then say that every value I'll assign to a variable which is called as principal, and then same thing. Let us see. Writing for in or just writing array dot each will give you the same result. Simple? Yeah? Pardon me, any confusion in that? Result is changed. I might have messed up something. ఏం మార్చేసాను ఇక్కడ? Variable has messed up. You have to use, because it was storing the last value of dollar over here. Let me try to do this. Sorry. Because it was storing the last value of dollar principal from the upper scope. Yeah. Is it same now? Yes. So we have tried to write the loop, same thing, in different ways. This is what every language offers. So there is nothing wrong or right in here. This is your comfort. Whatever you feel like, you use that stuff. Right? But I would personally prefer each better than all of this, because each is very simple. You are just saying that for each item in this array, do this activity. Fine? Yeah? Was this really difficult? No, right? Okay. Now, yeah, I am messed up. Fine. Now our problem has slightly changed also. Now what I have is, what is the thing which I am giving over here? Principles. But my rate of interest also might change. Okay. One way of dealing that is, I'll put something like dollar rates, and I have to tell an instruction saying that you follow exactly the same structure. Here you write it as 24, 16, 18, 20. You have 4 items over here, you should give 4 items over here, right? And this 1000 and this 24 are related because they have the same position. Yeah. And then rather than using dollar rate, use rates of something over, right? But that will work over here. What will happen over here? Because we are iterating only through principles, but how will we get the rate value then? Will you write 2 loops for that? Nonsense, right? Yeah. So when you have 2 related things, writing your structure like this is completely nonsense, right? Now what is that you are trying to tell? I am trying to tell about 2 things or 2 inputs, right? So why don't I have 2 inputs at one shot rather than writing them separately? Make sense? Yeah. So how can I write about 2 things in one structure? Array is fine. Array will tell you about, array is multiple values of it. Array can tell you a single value. But the problem now is, for every iteration, I don't have one value, I have 2 values. One is about principal, the other one is about rate of interest. So how can I fit in some 2 different values at one scope? For that, you use something called as hash. We call it as hash, right? Hash is nothing but key value collection, key value pair, right? So every language has its own hash, right? So in languages like C, you might define something called as structure, right? But structure is more of a definition, right? Here what we do is we do something called as hash. Hash in Ruby. Okay. So Ruby hash looks something like this. Okay. So you will write something like, it starts with a curly brace and ends with a curly brace, and then you will write a key. What is my first key? Principal. And the value of that is basically given like this. This is called as big comma. All right, big comma, and the value of the principal is 10,000, right? And then you put a comma over here and come to the next key value pair where you will say rate, and then rate is 20. Now you are having one element which is describing about two things, not single thing. In the earlier case, we have used something like principles of this because we are trying to deal with only one value. Now you have several inputs. All right. So is it good? Now, whenever I want to tell about multiple interest rates, whenever I want to tell anything multiple, I'll be using a square bracket, again array, comma, and I'll have one more hash. Simple. And this is the principal rate and the interest rate for the second person, third person, fourth person. That's how we deal with it. Shall I do that? Yes. So I'll define altogether a new structure. Okay. So let me write something called as dollar inputs is equal to square bracket of, I'll be writing about only two things. If you want, you can change that stuff. All right. You can write it in multiple lines. There is no wrong in here. But I'm trying to write it, fit it in one line. First key is principal, and the value of principal is 10,000. And I put a comma, and I would write a second key, which is rate of interest, and which is 24. And now what is it I have? I have array of hashes. I put one more comma over here. All right. And now I will just say dollar inputs dot each. Okay. Do. And every input I am going to call it as input. Okay. And I'll put an end statement over here. And then whenever I want principal, I will say dollar principal is equals to. Okay. In hash, if you want to get a value, we have the hash in input. What is my key for principal? Remember, in array we have used numbers. Here we use keys to get the value. Okay. And I'm not sure, this is becoming difficult. I'll copy this in a notepad plus plus after this, but let me finish this execution. Right. Dollar rate is equals to input of, what is the key's name? Done. Over here, let me be very specific because I don't want to spell it out differently. All right. And you just okay. Let me speak about puts. Are you getting these values? Now, if you want to tell one thing, you can use directly integer or string or whatever it is. But whenever you want to tell more than one thing about it, you have to use something called as hash. You have to use something called as hash. Simple? Yes. Any doubts on that Ruby hash? When to use Ruby hash? Are we clear on that? Yeah. Whenever I'm saying multiple, I don't mean an array. Different things about the same stuff. Right? So if I want to tell two principles, I'll never use a hash. I will use an array. But if I want to tell principal and rate about one person, then I'll go for using a hash. Yeah. If I want some more values, I can also add that to this stuff. Am I clear on this? Yeah. So are hashes important in Chef? They are extremely important. Multi-dimensional array is a very old technique, and that is nonsense. You use off 0, off 1, and all of that. Now these days, no one is, basically everyone have moved to this key value pair concepts, even in many languages. Unfortunately, we are still working in C. That's the only way which we have. But generally, if you work on anything other than C, you generally go with key value pairs, all right? Because it is a simple way of telling the stuff. Okay, all right. So Ruby hash is a very simple structure which tells about multiple things about the same stuff. All right. Now let me go and do one interesting stuff. I have executed something called as Ohai. This you can execute on any machine where you have installed Chef DK or Chef node. I'll tell you why hash is very much relevant to us. Okay. So it is much like a hash, but actually our big comma is replaced by colon, right? Semicolon, colon symbol. That is nothing but a JSON file. Alright? Okay. Now let me do one thing. Let me go to CD. Okay. CD downloads. What I'll do is I'll just say Ohai and I'll redirect to something called as Ohai output dot JSON. Let us look at that file. That file will tell us interesting things about our system. Okay, done. Good. So let me go to the download folder over here. Ohai output.json. Let me open it with Notepad++. Are you seeing something over here? It says kernel. Okay. You come down. What are these things? What are they? What is that information looking like? This is information about my system. Alright. And Ohai is a plugin in Chef which can read information about the nodes where you are running Chef. Right? How will Chef server know what you are? Because Ohai will run this and it will convert that into a Ruby hash and it will give it to a Chef server. And converting this to a Ruby hash is very simple. Replace all the colons with big comma. That becomes a Ruby hash. Right? So this will be stored on your server. Okay. This is the first thing why we need to understand the hash. Now, if condition, I'll come back to it later. We know when to use if condition, right? So I'll come back to that at a later point of time. But let's first, whatever we have learned, let us try to apply it to our cookbook which we have written yesterday. Yeah. So let me go to the C drive, Devops, Chef, November 28th, Chef repo, cookbooks. I think lamp, right? We have written a hell of a nonsense kind of a stuff, right? First thing, okay. In this page we don't have too much of nonsense, but in this page we have too much of nonsense. So what is this package? How many times I have reiterated? So can I use something like dollar packages is equals to php comma yes. Let me copy this. And I think we have one more at the bottom, which is php CLI. Simple. And now what is that I can use? Remove all of this stuff apart from service and say, if you want one more thing, what you can do is you can go to these extensions, and if you want help of Ruby, right, you can search for something called as Ruby, right, and you would get some Ruby extension. I think you, why is the search missing? Yeah, install Ruby, so that Ruby will help you in writing loops and conditions or whatever it is. If you want to write Python, also same thing. Search for a Python extension and try to write, because these extensions will help you in doing the stuff. Right? If you don't want to remember the syntaxes, all right, yeah, let it do its job, but we know how to do that. Okay. So what is it we write? You can write for dollar package in dollar packages, or you can write while statement, or you can write each statement. So I said that I will be liking each statement a lot, so I'd be saying each do, okay, package to be installed, and then over here I'll write something called as package. And what is my package's name? So since it is not an array, it is a variable, I am directly writing it, and then I say, now is it looking better? I don't reiterate stuff. I basically try to write multiple things. Okay, that is one thing. Or the other thing which we can go and do look at Chef is Chef resource package. Yes, and if you look at a package resource, look into syntax of it. Is it taking array by any chance for package name? You don't even need to do that. You can just write package. In the package name, just pass your packages array. Yeah, because it is taking array as an input also. Not only string, it also does take array as an input. You can do any of this. Then there is nothing wrong with both of the approaches. It is what you have realized is something important, because it is taking string as well as array for it. And all of these are data types, right? Yes. So you can pass whatever data type that makes sense to you. All right. I can pass string or array. All right. So I would prefer it this way, because this makes people easier for them to understand. That's it. This is the first thing. So it has nothing to do with really programming. It is something which I have applied. I want to reiterate multiple things, so I have to go for iteration. And since we are writing in RB files, it is Ruby, and we have learned how to write a iteration in Ruby, and we have applied it into the simple. So is this looking better than what it was yesterday now? Yes. So we have removed one nonsense, right? Now let me come back to other. Over here, we have discussed that in Chef, you cannot have two resources with the, that's really difficult. So do I have one resource first of all? Yes, right? So what I'll do is I'll remove rest of the services. Okay, let me not remove it. Let me need it, because I need some other stuff to be done. Okay, so whenever you install Apache, after that you need to call this, which will enable the service, and after that you are restarting. All right. So now basically whenever I install a package, service should be called. So, and service should do enable, and service might need to do restart, whatever it is. So what is the service call? It is always result of some action. Yes or no? It is always a result of some action. And whenever you want to execute something as a result of something, that is called as notification. That is called as notification. So whenever you want to notify something, there are two ways. Okay, I want to notify you. Can you tell me what are two ways? One, I will inform you. The other one is you will ask me. Ante kada? So if I want to notify you, there are two ways of getting it. One is I will inform you, right? Whenever I am informing you, I will become publisher. You are listening to me, you will become a subscriber. So this is basically called as publisher and subscriber, and this can be done in any way. Either I send the information or you expect for the information, right? So in Chef, basically you have Okay, let me search for something called as notifications and notifies. Notifies is the user who is I am telling to you. Subscribes is you are listening to me, and both are correct. You can use anything, right? You can use either notifies or subscribes, right? So one thing what I can do is I can go to the service and say that I am subscribing to this because I want to listen to that person, or I can go to the package and tell that notify service that you have to enable now. Am I clear on that? So I can write something like notifies. What is that you want to notify? See the syntax. I want to notify the action. And what is the action which you want to do? I want to do enable. So I would say that I want to enable. So on which resource? The resources syntax is generally written as resources type of name. So what is the resources type over here? What is the name of the service? Services, service of Apache. Look at this resource of name. Okay, so for example, if he is saying trying to see, he is trying to tell that this is what he does. Okay, and then what is that I messed up over here? No, it is fine. And then there is one thing called as timer. When do you want to call it? Okay, and in timers you have something like you can do before, you can do delayed, or you can do immediate. Okay, so basically I can use anything over here. Okay, so let me go for something called as done. I don't need this joke anymore. Okay, it is notifies enable. Okay, and the best part is I can go to the other file, and whenever I want to do restart, I don't need to do all of this. I can just say that whenever you, after you have finished installing all of the packages, then do notification. But this will result to multiple restarts because every time it will do. It is not a good idea if you have written your package like this, but it's okay. Let us write it. Since we are not writing a very great stuff, right? So notifies, and this time it is restart. Let me copy that line completely. This time I want to do okay, and I'll go to the deploy now. In deploy also I have this stuff. I don't want to get into this nonsense, and I would say notifies restart. Since I am restarting anyway over here, I would not bother about restarting over here, so I'll remove this line. So suddenly the chef code which we have written too many lines. Now is it looking better? We have written service only once, all right, and I am reusing that service by passing multiple values to it, which is action, and I am trying to tell when do I want to perform that action, right? And the best part is even though you call service again and again, if you put that as delayed, what happens is it will combine all of the service calls and do it only one time. But if you put it as immediately, it will do every time, right? So it is better to use delayed whenever you have multiple restarts in your stuff, because it will combine 2 or 3 restarts and it will do it one shot. So is this looking better, or whatever we have done yesterday is looking? Yeah. So now I want to upload this stuff. I want to upload this stuff. And remember, whenever I am uploading, I said that you cannot upload same version. So what is it I need to do? I need to go to my metadata.rb and I need to change the version. I am changing the version from 0.1 to 0.1.1, and I'll go to the command line, and even I want to go to the command line from Visual Studio itself, and then search for something. Control Shift P is a command which will give you this, and try to search for something called as terminal and focus terminal. You get a PowerShell over here, but if you want something else, you can customize and you can say that I want command prompt, or I want git bash, or I want whatever it is. And over here I can tell that what is that the stuff which I want to do over here is works not install. We have installed it already. We have to You don't need to even open PowerShell. You have everything in your Visual Studio Code itself. So is knowing a Ruby improved our chef a bit? Yes. That's the only reason why we use. So I might need to write some conditional statements. I'll come back to the conditional statements in that perspective. Right? Conditional statement comes in. Let us assume that you have written 4 lines of code and you don't want to execute all the 4. You want to execute only 2 lines in that. That's where you generally write conditional statements, right? Yeah. Okay. Simple. I don't want to explain what is if and what is if else. I expect you to know that. Right. So fine, we have uploaded this, right? So shall we try to go to our log in into that machine and then just do chef client to see whether it is working, or syntactically it might be a failure, because whenever you have run chef, it could be a success or it could be a failure, right? So how do I connect to this? I use, let me go to the downloads. Okay, now I'll try to execute sudo. Are we getting the new version, lamp 0.1.1, because that is what we have uploaded, right? Yeah. Is it working? Yes. Wonderful. Right. Now let me go to manage.chef.io to see something interesting. I'll not do that. I'll not do that. I'll come back to that later. Okay. Before that, we need to do something else. Now the problem is we don't have only one node, but we have one more node. And this node is a Red Hat node. But the problem is this script which I have written here works only for what? Ubuntu. How to make this stuff work for Red Hat as well? One approach is, for Red Hat, I write different files altogether. Yeah. And I will include recipe only Ubuntu files if it is a Ubuntu machine. Let us assume that this is a Ubuntu code. I will execute this only in the case of Ubuntu. And I'll execute the other 3 include recipe statements if it is Red Hat. But for me to know that information, I should know what is Red Hat machine and what is a Ubuntu machine. How will I come to know about that information? Okay. So, oh hi. And let me just say, oh hi, hyphen, hyphen, help. And then he's trying to tell that in Ohi you can give a configuration directory log level version, but I don't have anything called as filter. So I am afraid I don't have other option. I have to give Ohi colon grep OS. Okay, I am not seeing everything at one shot, so I'll do one more thing. I'll just say colon. Okay, just tell me if you are seeing anything called as I'm not seeing anything which is useful for me, right? So let me do one more thing. Ohi colon grep, and what is this operating system? Let me grep for that. So, man, there are too many Ubuntus. Okay, good. Did we see something else? Yeah. So there is something called as platform, and it says it is Ubuntu. Okay. Now let me take this value and then go to the manage.chef.io. That is why I was waiting. So now let me go to the manage.chef.io. Let me select my nodes. Okay. And then let me go to this section which is called as attributes. Okay. And then scroll through these attributes. Are you using any attribute which says what is it? Platform is Ubuntu. Good. Now let me select Red Hat. Go to the attributes. Scroll down. So here the platform is. So is there any way for me to tell whether it is a Red Hat machine or a Ubuntu machine now? If I use this platform, I'll be able to tell it. And basically this structure is a Ruby hash. This structure is a Ruby hash. If I wanted to get principal value, what is that I have done? Dollar input of principal, right? In this example, if I'm not sure whether if you have forgotten this early, but I wanted to get a principal value of it. So what is it I have said? Input of principal. So input value holds that hash, right? And then to get that value, what is it I have done is I have said input of principal. Now, if you go over here, the object which holds all of this value is called as node or node object, right? So the object which holds that is node. And from the node, if I want to get the platform value, I'll be writing something like node of single quotes or double quotes is your choice. Just like how we have done dollar input of principals, we'll be doing node of this. And now sometimes you might need to go one level deeper. Are you seeing these plus symbols? So if I want to go to this, you need to write node of virtualization of system, right? So, counters, network, interfaces, IO. So if you want to do this, node of counters, of network, of interfaces, of LO, of TX. That's how you write it, because everything is a hash, right? You will be going with multiple key value pairs, and you have this whole structure over here, right? So now let me just think of lamp stack on Red Hat. Uh, let us see. I just want steps. I'm not really not interested in what the other stuff is. So creating the lamp stack. Okay. He has written the whole script, man. No. Okay. So to install lamp, we have to go with HTTPD, and these are the other modules which we need to install. And the PHP modules over here are these things. And the service name is HTTPD. MariaDB is your database, and I'm not installing database. So if I have to look at it, let me copy them. Okay. So the stuff which I need to do is I need to do yum update. Yes. And then I need to do is I need to install something called as HTTPD, because the service name over here is HTTPD, not Apache. Okay. Fine. And the PHP packages which I need to install is this, right? And my service name is. Now the whole problem which I have is, let me go with this code. In my code, what is an assumption over here? My package name is Apache, right? And I am doing apt-get update. I want to do this only on a Ubuntu machine, right? So one thing which I can write is I can write something like if, all right, if something like this. If node of platform equals to Ubuntu, then execute this stuff. All right, I'll write else if you will not have the complete stuff, you can write else if. I cannot write else because tomorrow if I try to run this on a Windows machine, it will try to execute the Red Hat code. I don't want to do that. If node of platform is equal to Red Hat. Okay. So to check my syntaxes, I will obviously go to the Google again. So how do I do that? We have done all of this from Google itself. If else in okay. So if conditional statement, then fine, good. So how is it looking like? Yeah. So we are following the same syntax. I'll go over here and then I'll try to tell that over here I need to write something for, yeah. So what is a mistake? No, there is no mistake. Fine. So over here I need to write something for yum update. So chef resources, where is the chef resources? Let me Google for it. Chef resources. I'll go with resources reference. Yeah. And let me see if I have any resource which does yum update. So I'll search for something called as yum. Okay. So there is something called as yum package, that is fine. Okay. But am I seeing something called as yum update? No, I don't have it. So how do I solve it? Right? So for today I'll leave it. We have yum update to be solved and we don't find a method. Yeah. Okay, good. And the next one is my package name is different. So I'm not worrying about it at this moment. I will just say I'll do apt-get update only when it is. All right. And then my package name is different, right? So I'll try to tell that if basically my machine is Ubuntu, okay, then I will define saying that dollar package underscore name. The default value over here is HTTPD. But if it is Ubuntu machine, then my dollar package name will have a value which is called as fine. Good. Now, rather than using this, now I'll use a variable called as okay. I have to use the same thing for service name. Yeah, this is fine. Till this page it is fine. Now if I go to this variable, this case, I don't have something called as dollar package name over here. That was in a different file. So how do I handle this situation? So I have to write that logic again. And here I also define a variable called as package underscore name. Go to the other file and do the same thing again. So will I like to repeat myself whenever I am doing these kind of things? Okay. So first thing what we do is I want a better approach for this. Okay. Yeah. This is not looking good. Okay. And writing something like this is also chef will tell that there is better way of handling this. You just write apt underscore update, and you just say that I want to update packages. Okay, ignore failure, I'm not interested in it. And then you can say that do this only underscore f node of platform is equal to, there is no need for you to write a if condition around it. If you write only if, it is as good as writing a if condition around it. So writing in this way or this way is exactly the same, but in Chef we prefer the later, so that's why. Simple. Yeah, so our code is somehow becoming better, but it is still not complete. It is still not complete because I am unable to solve the problem of how do I pass the service name which is at one common place and make it apply for my complete cookbook. Make it apply for my complete cookbook. Right? So this is where I am stopping my class, and that is where our discussion on Monday will begin. Right? So we know that if I use if conditions, I can run it on Red Hat now. But we are looking out for an effective way of doing that. That's where we will start a discussion on something called as attributes. We have already looked into attributes, saying that there was an attributes list, whole list, right? And how can I write my own attributes? How can I write my own attributes? And that is what is the agenda of our Monday's class. So am I clear on this? Yeah. And I'm reiterating, on Tuesday we might not have a class. We will not have a class. Not we might not. We will not have a class because I have some official work at office. So I'll not be able to make it. So Tuesday will not have a class. Tuesday is the only thing. Rest of the days will work as is. Right? Okay. Okay then. Yes. So now, are the loops helping you in writing, Chef? Yes. Remember, most of you people might have asked a question saying that will DevOps have coding? DevOps will not have coding more than what we have tried today. So you will write always the conditional statements or a looping, so that because you want to reiterate your logic, right? So don't think of code as a complicated activity. We have seen that. Okay. See, what could happen is I have tried a simple problem. Your problem can be complicated, right? But programming offers the same thing, right? So over here, if I want to store my values to a database, right, I will not have much of the things to be done. For doing a database, there will be someone who has already written some Python code. I have to call it. Just like how we are calling apt update for doing databases, you would have some Python library which has done it, or you will have some Ruby library which has done it. That's what your developers do. They are not developing Java, they are using Java. That's how you look at it. Now you are using Chef, they use Java. Your problem statement is basically deploying an application. Their problem statement is building an application. Right? మనం షెఫ్ రాయట్లేదు, యాప్ట్ అప్డేట్ లాంటిది రాసేస్తున్నావా? రైట్లా వాడుతున్నాం. Right? Even your developers do the same thing. They use a Spring code, they use a Java code, they use .NET. Right? They are not developing anything. They are using most of the times. And while using, we will write something better. So our script on the day one was looking ugly, and we knew that. So today is looking better. Tomorrow it might look much more better and efficient. That comes with the way you practice it. This is the same thing for programming, this is the same thing for scripting, and this is the same reality for DevOps as well. Right? So this all looks wonderful when you try it, but if you forget it, the problem is, if you don't do it in this way, you will definitely forget it. Yeah. And never ever try to write the program Chef code directly. First look at manual steps. I might do it in the class to save time. Okay, మీరు టైం సేవ్ చేయాల్సిన అవసరం ఉందని నేను అనుకోవట్లా. ఎందుకంటే నేను టైం వేస్ట్ చేస్తే నా ఒక్కడిది వేస్ట్ చేయట్లా. ఐఎమ్ మల్టిప్లైయింగ్ విత్ ఆల్ ఆఫ్ ద పీపుల్ హూ ఆర్ ఇన్ ద క్లాస్ రూమ్. ఫర్ యూ, whenever you are practicing on your own, you are not wasting time, you are learning too many things. Right? Every failure will treat you something which is very good. Right? Now whenever you are running this bootstraps, right, or whenever you are running this stuff, I have executed sudo chef client, right? If you want to know more, you just do this. Generally you don't see these many logs. but I have said that I have done minus L and debug, and it is trying to tell what it has done. Whenever anything fails, this is what you need to. You need to go through this log and see where is it failing. Yeah. So these are debugging skills. We'll come to that. We'll definitely have a discussion around it. But the whole point which I wanted to try is, for me, things might not fail in the classroom because I have done it too many times, right? But for you, that might not be the story. But in that case, try to see whether it is a uh, syntax failure or whether it is a runtime failure. Syntax failure is whenever you are running Chef itself is trying to tell you have written nonsense, right? I'm not understanding what you have written. Or if Chef does this, it executes it and it will try to tell that somewhere in between it has failed. So for example, if you want to try it, you can try it using, don't do apt update and try to install PHP on a new Ubuntu machine. It will fail because you have older packages and Ubuntu will not allow install on older packages. And this has nothing to do with your Chef script. It is something to do with your logic. You have messed up. You have not done apt-get update. But Red Hat doesn't behave the same. Even in Red Hat, even if you don't do yum update, it might allow installation of applications. That is an operating system behavior, and you and me cannot change that. So whenever you're doing it, do it manually, have a steps, and for that steps, try to convert that into Chef resources. Write that. It's okay whenever you write it for the first time, it might not look beautiful. It's okay. Then we apply the other learnings of Chef and try to make it minimal. But it will not all happen in one day. నేను ఇదంతా చూపించకుండా డైరెక్ట్ గా ఈ కోడ్ రాసేయచ్చు. Right? There is no need for me to show all of this. I could have said that, okay, you write a loop over here. That is an array. That is a hash and all of that. But I want you to go through this journey because this is something which you need to understand very clearly. It is not that every time it has to be a great code. No code is great. Right? So we will reach to the greatness gradually, not at the first attempt. Yeah.